Hello and welcome to part 4 of making a laser tank for Dungeons & Dragons using the vehicle construction kit. Today we're going to look at some more advanced options, in particular getting some nice thick armor plating on the front of the tank. This laser turret does an average of 220 points of damage, and our tank's damage threshold is 70. We want to improve that so that other laser turrets will just bounce off the front of the vehicle. As previously discussed, for our laser tank, we use the plating option from Engineering Options, in which each of these full coverage steel structure components grant half a point of plating. We've got 4 of those structures in the front, 2 in the center, and 2 in the rear. So that all adds up to a plating value of 4, which then affects the vehicle's total damage threshold. We are now going to play around with another optional rule called thick plating. With the thick plating option, each body section, front, center, and rear, has its own independent damage threshold. So we add up the plating values separately for each of those body sections. Now, by default, a structure component is distributed, which means it contributes its plating score to each body section. But you can say, okay, this structure, we're going to use thick plating and dedicate it to just 1 or 2 body sections. So here, those 4 structure components in the front, I've said, hey, these 2 here, they are going to be dedicated to the front. Those are thick plating. So the distributed structures, you work out the plating just as normal. So each full structure gives half a plating. So that's 2 times a half for each of these. And then the thick plating, you multiply it by 3 if it's only going to contribute towards 1 body section. It provides 0 plating to the center and rear in this case. So let's tot everything up and see what the damage thresholds are. So the front plating, we add the dedicated front thick plating and all the distributed plating. So the total is 3, 4, 5, 6. And for the center and rear, it's just the distributed plating. So 1, 2, 3. Now we do still have the composite armor from the laser tank to factor in, but I'm just curious to see what the damage thresholds will be before and after we apply that. So here's our damage threshold tables. So at the front, we're a mass 7 vehicle. We add the 6 plating. So we use the 13 row. That is damage threshold 30. Then center and rear, 7 plus 3 is 10. So we use the 10 row. Damage threshold is 17. Now in the core VCK book, that would be 15. But I'm using the table from the engineering options book. Right, let's apply the composite armor bonus now. Now at the bottom of the screen here, I've written composite armor times 3. It's not times 3 bonus, it's a plus 3 armor class bonus. And looking at the component information, it's actually times 4 plating bonus. Looking back at our laser tank stat block, it's just the steel structure components in slots 1 to 4 that we gave the composite treatment. So we go back up here and we multiply these values by 4, both for the thick armor and the distributed armor in the front section there. And let's see what the new plating values are. So in the front, it'll be 12 plus 4 plus 1 plus 1, which is 18, I think. And then center and rear, it's going to be 4 plus 1 plus 1, which is 6. What are the new damage thresholds? So damage threshold, we'll start with mass 7, add 18 for the front plating, that's 25. So row 25 on the extended damage threshold table gives us a damage threshold of 300. And the center and rear, 7 plus 6 is 13. So that's a damage threshold of 30. Just for context, the average damage of a 20 millimeter autocannon is about 30 points of damage. Now, the 20 megajoule laser does an average of 220, so the front armor is going to block over half of that, but not all of it. Let's see what we can do about that. Another option from the engineering options book is top and underside plating. So this would give you a top and underside damage threshold, which you would use against attacks coming from the top and underside. So things like indirect fire, plunging fire, flying creatures, flying vehicles, they would all attack the top damage threshold, and landmines and such like would use the underside damage threshold. Main battle tanks in the real world tend to have thinner armor on the top and underside, so let's work out how to do that in VCK. The default plating value for top and underside is just what the plating value for the vehicle would be if you weren't using the thick plating rule. So it's literally just 1 plus 1 plus 4 and then plus 4 because we're ignoring the times 3 thick plating multiplier there. So 4, 4, 1, 1, that's a plating of 10. And you can use it like that and get the damage threshold for plating 10, but we're going to thin it out. And how you do that is you decrease the top or underside by 3, and that lets you add 1 to the rear, center, and front. And we're going to do that with the underside as well. So the damage threshold for the top and underside. Mass 7 plus 7 is 14. Row 14 gives us a damage threshold of 40. And then we've increased the front, center, and rear by 2 steps. So damage threshold 300 becomes 500. And damage threshold 30 becomes 50. So with damage threshold 500, that's going to pretty much deflect all 20 megajoule laser shots. 4d10 times 10. So if you rolled 4 10s, that's 400 damage. So that would not penetrate. You basically have to score a critical hit. Or get round the back of the tank and shoot it up the tailpipe. So what used to be damage threshold 70, we now record like this. So damage threshold 500 at the front, 50 side and rear, and 40 top and underside. Need to work on the formatting a little bit there. That's the general gist of it. Well, that was certainly a lot of numbers, wasn't it? And I suppose for a lot of dungeon masters, they'd be content with just making the numbers up. Why not? But me, I like having a procedure. I like having a formula. I like having internal consistency. If I make a bunch of different vehicles, I want them to be comparable. What happens if I lighten the armor here? What happens if I add a bigger engine in? That kind of thing. And if I enjoy doing that, that means some people out there will enjoy doing it as well. So that was part 4 of making a laser tank. In part 5, we'll have a look at the weapon design system that I've been tinkering around with and make some kind of machine gun to go on the top of the turret or in the front of the hull. I'll decide later.